Cheers.
Cheers. Welcome to Reckoning Bros, everybody. I'm Mark. I'm joined by Scott in Los Angeles. Scott,
What's going on, Mark? How are you feeling?
just keeping a low profile and defending the American way of life.
I don't think you're keeping that low of a profile, man. I don't think you're keeping that low of a profile. Like, I get these texts from you, like, look what I just tweeted, and you're like, so and so political figure is a dumbass and go fuck himself, like 10,000 likes.
That
You obviously say it way more clever.
you imagined that I did that.
That could be true too.
You
That could be true.
fever dreamed that.
You imagine that he got 10,000 likes.
Oh, the 10,000 likes part I did make
I've
up.
gone viral a couple times. I forget what the best one I ever did was.
I saw you on a YouTube show that I watched. One of your tweets was featured. I remember I texted you.
Yes, I remember.
And I was like, this can't be the same Mark.
And I'm regularly featured on Twitchy and Ala Pundit.
I don't know what either one of those are, but congratulations to you on that.
I wasn't bragging about it or anything, but
just keeping a high profile, defending the American way of life. That's you.
Can everybody see the producer? Or just
we're going to make it so we're probably going to edit it to where it's just you and I as per usual.
Just did the micro penis thing to me, and I'm a little bit upset about it.
Okay, he did do that. I can confirm he did that, even though the people won't be able to say it. Mark, do you want to say what we're going to talk about today?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the decline of masculinity and what it's like to be a man.
Yeah.
It's plowed ground. A lot of people have talked about it. But
it's a big issue.
But you told me about recently about some stuff that you'd read and how you'd studied up on it. Stuff that I didn't know. Because my interpretation was that it was all that I hadn't given any thought to, food and what you're going to talk about, microplastics, etc. I really hadn't given that any thought at all. My interpretation of it was everything was downstream from economics, and basically three parts: parenting, entertainment, and education.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it. That's what. So I was looking into it, doing some research. I just finished Richard Reeves' book of Boys and Men, which is fantastic. I was watching videos, reading articles, that kind of shit. The kind of stuff that you do to prepare to talk about a subject on a podcast, apparently. One of the most interesting interviews I saw, a woman named Dr. Shauna Swan. She's an epidemiologist. She works at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, and she's been researching male infertility and low sperm count issues. A lot of interesting stuff in a nutshell. The whole thing about plastics being an endocrine disruptor. Have you heard this phrase, endocrine disruptor? Basically, that's something that comes in and makes it so it fakes out your body.
Endocrine disruptors are precisely what puberty blockers are. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when it refers to plastics, apparently it comes in and it tricks your body into thinking it has enough testosterone, and so your body produces less testosterone because of it. They have done studies, and this is all I got this from several locations, but I'll go ahead and post in the references in the show notes here. But for the past 50 years, there has been a 1% drop in sperm count every year. So that's a more than 50% drop in sperm count since the 1970s. Is that not insane?
Means I was based.
You were based and are based. Yeah. But the rest of us are dealing with 50% less swimmers downstairs, and it's causing a whole hell of a lot of issues. There's three major reasons that she broke down here. So there's pesticides and two different kinds of plastics, basically. Hard plastics and soft plastics, like soft plastics being like a water bottle. They have different kind of chemicals that creates these, cause the body to produce less testosterone. Phthalates are an example of one of them. And the other one is I can't find on my notes, so I'm just going to put it in text when I edit this. But anyways, these things all add together. These pesticides, stuff like that, they cause sperm counts to lower. The most impressive part of all of this is how not disputed this is. When you look up, there's not really people arguing this. This isn't like something like that RFK says that people just go and argue against, right? And they're like, "Oh no, that's not true." No, no, no. Pretty much mainstream science is behind this, from what
So
I could
yeah,
tell.
so it's not like the tobacco companies saying cigarettes are good for you.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that. I mean, a 50% sperm count
Which is what they were
drop
saying when I
since the
started smoking.
1970s. Oh yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, that 5 out of 10 doctors recommend Lucky Strikes kind of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not that, but I just thought it was so fascinating, man. There's also here's a nice little crazy little detail. You can actually measure testosterone in utero from a male baby by measuring their anogenital distance, aka the taint size. Who knew that? It's weird what you find when you look stuff up. But these studies are they're even doing studies. They think that some of these plastics, these different chemicals, could also be a cause of a increase in homosexuality. It's not a well discussed topic for obvious reasons, understandable reasons.
Well,
You know,
that
if
would
you're
blow. Yeah, that would blow a lot of people's minds because
people wouldn't want to talk about it, right?
well,
It's
yeah,
just
I mean,
too third rail.
the settled science is that you're either born gay or you're not,
Yeah,
or you're born trans, or you're born non-binary, or whatever the fuck ever.
there's a fear of any environmental cause to anything. Everybody wants to be blank slate about all this shit, right?
Yeah,
And it
right.
just doesn't really make
I
sense.
mean,
And it's
right. Like
sorry, go.
we already know that people that we already know that there are people that aren't born gay who end up in prison and are gay,
Yeah.
right?
What is a disclaimer?
They have
I'm just
no
gonna
because they have no other outlet by which
yeah
to yeah.
from which to ejaculate inside another human being. This is not.
Go to
There
your
is.
go to your room.
Oh, go to my room. Uh, this is not. We're not saying anti-gay stuff. Why should we say we even have to make that disclaimer? This makes no difference in the quality of a human being whatsoever. This is simply their environmental causes have certain effects on people. This is it's just no different than you have something that causes vitiligo. Who cares? Or you
Yeah,
have something that causes your pinky finger to be smaller than your other fingers.
yeah. It's got nothing to do
It
with
doesn't
color.
fucking matter. It
Right.
doesn't make any
Yeah. Yeah.
difference in you as a human being whatsoever.
Yeah.
But studies come up with crazy shit that we don't want to look at.
No, Josh
Mark,
is a perfectly nice.
before we started talking though, uh, you gave us a background of your TV shows and how that's
Well, so you're talking about things that affect people's physiology,
yeah.
and um, which was news to me. I mean, I peruse an occasional article about some dye or some this or some that reduces testosterone. I really didn't give it a lot of. It's not that I didn't believe it out of hand. It was just like, meh, So the you telling me about the Richard Reeves book, and then
Of Boys and Men.
yeah, and then and I read some reviews on that, and I listened to a couple of reports on it. So yeah, that's definitely a cause. My interpretation of the decline of masculinity was how was the three categories that I broke it down into were parenting, education, and entertainment. Right,
Hmm.
because the shows I grew up with, the movies I grew up with, except for the occasional Henry Fonda character in Once Upon a Time in the West, where the masculine guy is really a bad person, has no redeeming moral qualities whatsoever. But the protagonists in Steve McQueen movies, and John Wayne movies, and Clint Eastwood movies, um, they always they were always gentlemen. They were always protecting women. They were always deferential to women. I say always, maybe a little, back and forth.
Chivalry was a real thing. It would
Chivalry
be
was a
fair to say.
real thing, and so was tolerance. Like
Mm.
if you watch The Rifleman and Gunsmoke, um, Wanted Dead or Alive.
Bonanza.
If you watch any of those shows, like in every one of those shows, um, Matt Dillon is sticking up for the Chinese guy that just showed up in the town. He's got a ponytail. People are making fun of him. Somebody cuts the ponytail off, and and the bad guys, the cruel people, are brought to justice one way or the other, right? And the other thing was in those shows is like the good guys, the guys that were always standing up for what was right and what was moral, and by moral I mean being a gentleman, um, standing up against bullies, protecting your home and family, um, enforcing the law equally, right, and with prudence, right.
Mm.
Uh, the the heroes, the protagonists in those films and shows were they were they were what was that? How was I going to put it? They were always utterly patient.
Mm. Stoic,
So many,
almost.
there's so many scenes in John Wayne movies that, where or Clint Eastwood movies, um, uh, McQueen movies, Fonda movies, etc., where they're the hero, they're the good guy, and they don't fight at the drop of a hat. Like the bad guys are like, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and they force the hero into taking action.
Well, that's a
Right?
classic virtue, right? That you have the monster inside of you, but you don't want to use it
But
at
you don't
all.
want to use it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. This is such a classic masculine virtue.
And then with education, you know, um, when when families were headed, when families, we have a lot of single moms. We don't have the kind of two-parent nuclear families that we used to in the same numbers, the same percentages. And when kids grow up when a boy grows up without a dad, he doesn't have, he may have role models that he sees on television or, you know, in video games or social media, etc. But that's not a male role model
Do-
that a little boy needs.
Can I share a Richard Reeves statistic about that with you?
Please.
1 in 4 fathers don't live with their children. If parents, this is America, right? This is America. If parents split up, kids are much more likely to lose contact with their fathers than their mothers. 1 in 3 don't see their fathers if their parents separate. 4 in 10 children are currently born outside of marriage in the US. And it's statistically shown that boys suffer more than girls when their fathers are not around. I just
That's
thought that
re-
was an interesting
that,
stat.
that's terrifying. And this is something I talked to Josh about day before yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
And the last thing you said about boys growing up without dads. Tyrus talked about having, he's got 4 or 5 kids, and he talked about his daughters because Gutfeld just had a kid, he had a little girl, and they were poking fun of Gutfeld because Gutfeld's 60 years old, and so they gave him up, they razzed him up about that, but
With medical technology, he can see it till his kid's 20 at least.
right, and but Tyrus said something that was really interesting to me. And since I don't have any kids, I have my godson, who I love more than my life. And but Tyrus said that nothing, nothing is as unique as the love and the bond and the relationship between a dad and his little girl,
Hmm.
because dads are protective of are obviously more protective of girls than they are. They're, he doesn't love any one of his kids. He doesn't love his daughters more than his sons, right? And he said,
I think every parent secretly has the child they love more
and they
than the
will
others.
always, because they will always be your little girl, no matter how old they are. Right?
Yeah,
They will always be your little girl, and
of
that's
course.
something that is not replicated. Which was interesting to me because as somebody who really had the best father, right, and grow, I always thought of it like like the father son relationship being like unique, and it is, but there really is nothing like. But it's a counterpoint, and it runs alongside what you mentioned about.
Do you find it odd that our producer Josh is only bothered to raise one of his four kids? That's a joke. That's a joke. Josh is a very good father of his one child.
No, he
The
really
other
is.
three are just we don't really care about them. We probably don't have enough time to go in.
One of the things that he and I, as like a family member, have talked to the kid about is, and I, and Josh had this conversation years ago, and his son is not that old. It's like if you ever see
Don't be
somebody being
gross.
bullied, if you ever see somebody being bullied at school,
Hmm.
I am the boss, not the school. So you do what you can to help the person that's being bullied, even if it means physical confrontation. And what kids are told at school is there's zero tolerance for anything, any
Yeah.
kind of physical confrontation. You're
Well, it's they're
no
not
matter
even.
who starts it, you're both going to get suspended, et cetera, et cetera. And that's drilled into kids, especially drilled into boys. And Josh goes, he's like, no, 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 I will deal with the school. You will do what's right.
Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful thing to say because they're not only taught to not get into a physical confrontation, they're basically taught to not get into any confrontation, from what I
Correct.
understand. Right? That's kind of the bottom line thing. We probably have enough time if you're down for me to go over a few interesting statistics. What do you think?
I'm all ears.
So, Richard Reeves' book of Boys and Men. It's kind of an overall look at what's happening with men and how they're basically failing in society, more deaths of despair, all that kind of shit, dropping out of the work markets. Here's an
Just to
interesting.
interrupt you real quick, men
Yeah, yeah,
between
go for it. Go
the
for it.
ages of 24 and 35 represent the largest single group of people that have dropped out of the workforce.
Oh yeah,
Shocking to me.
yeah, yeah.
Able-bodied men
It's
in
it's
in
a
mom's
crazy
basement,
statistic.
in mom and dad's basement, or wherever they are, perpetually online, thinking that their relationships are whoever they're playing video games with, and um, their social media. Please continue.
No, no, no. That's great. Um, Girls' brains develop more quickly than boys,
Go to your
right?
room.
It's just true.
It is
It's just
true.
true. The prefrontal cortex just develops more quickly in girls than it does in boys. And this is leading to greater success in academia with women over boys, right? And a lot of people think, oh, okay, this is great because, payback's a bitch. This, stupid intersectionalist bullshit.
Yeah,
When really there should be as close to a gender parity as you can really want to get when it comes to education, right? You don't want to do crazy shit to make that happen, but you kind of want it to be
they're learning
pretty much
together.
50
Since
50.
they're learning together, you want there to be some semblance of parity.
Yeah. And there used to not be, right? So there used to be boys were hugely outnumbering girls when it came to college. And now it's the other way around. So, like in the US, men with college education age 24 to 34 is about 47%. With girls, it's over 60%. 24 to 34 have a college, some kind of tertiary education of some kind. It's completely flipped, which on one hand, there's a very understandable part of people. They're like, go women. Yes, of course, of course. But also go men. Like, we're all on the same team here. We're all on team life together. The fucking this stupid men versus women competition that is pushed needs to end and needs to end now because it hurts
Yeah,
men and it hurts women.
and people
Both.
blame feminism for it, and I never really blamed feminism per se. I did blame third wave feminism. I did blame the radical left feminism of fuck, down with the patriarchy,
Yeah.
fuck men,
Yeah, it's hard to get mad when
believe all
women.
women. And, I mean, and apropos of nothing, we found out, we saw the interview yesterday with the woman who accused the lacrosse team at Duke of rape, ruined their lives.
Yeah.
Now she's in prison now for killing her boyfriend, right?
Jesus.
But they allowed an interview, and she said she was really sorry about it, that it never happened, and she hoped that they can forgive those men now, will forgive her. And that didn't start the believe all women thing. That was the Me Too movement. But
Yeah,
and
it's to your point about the third wave feminism thing. I think there's a world of difference between women in the 50s and 60s that had no right to leave abusive relationships, that weren't encouraged to work and make their own money, versus silly ultra lefty, down with the
yeah,
patriarchy
yeah,
slogans that have nothing behind them. Shit we see today.
yeah. And I told somebody online a couple of months ago when they said, women couldn't go to college in the 1950s, and women couldn't do this, women can do that. My great grandmother My great grandmother was born in 1898. She got her degree before 1920, I think, 1920,
Hmm.
21, right? Um, and she went on to own a shirt factory, a custom shirt factory,
Which is amazing. But
right?
there's no doubt that she had to overcome hurdles that women don't have to overcome today.
She did, and she was also, um, she also was involved um, the the right to vote. Um,
Women's suffraging.
Yeah, that was the term I couldn't think of. Yeah, she was involved with all of that. So, but it was just like these blanket statements that it was against the law. Well, no, it wasn't against the law. It wasn't against the law for women to go to college in 1920. It was
No.
very difficult for a woman to go to college in 1920, and that was
Yeah.
for many reasons. Culturally, women didn't want to go to college. Culturally, women wanted to get married and have babies.
Yeah,
Environment, right?
it's a different world. It was a different place.
Right.
We're getting on a little long. We might have to part two this, man. I don't know what you guys think, but there's a lot to talk about here.
There
I
really
Lots
actually
is.
to
was
talk about
thinking
here.
that I got the timer about 2 minutes ago and thought, yeah, let's keep going because it's good stuff. One thing I do want to ask, this is a little cliche, but it was mentioned by you, Mark, but is chivalry dead?
Yeah, by and large, it is.
Look
I
what
think
happened to Daniel Penny.
I think it's coming. I think it's going to come back.
Ooh,
I think it's making a comeback.
There's a huge number of people that want chivalry to be dead, but I think you're right. The pendulum swings coming back,
I
and
think it's coming back,
uh,
and I think the Daniel Penny case, might be transformational in some way because and I don't want to. Man, I've heard like for the online lefties, I mean, they're just flat out calling him a cold blooded murderer
yeah,
and
those people are silly.
and a
They're not
racist
real.
and a
They
racist,
don't have minds.
et cetera. They're obviously the same people celebrating Luigi Mangione for actual cold-blooded murder, shooting somebody in
Yeah.
the back on a sidewalk, right?
Well, they were until they found out that he was basically a radical centrist. He loved Jonathan Haidt, Brett Weinstein, people I like,
I want to say one
and then
thing.
they're like, "Oh no, no, he's."
I want to
People
say
are
I
stupid.
want to say one
People are
thing
dumb.
about but before we end it. I want to say one thing about Luigi Mangione and the left and
Luigi Mangione.
the people that are cheering him on, the people that are sexualizing, the people that are making him a cult hero.
He's not even that hot. Sorry, he's got a nice body, but he's not even that hot. Let's be real. His fucking eyebrows.
The unibrow.
Yeah,
He's a
come on.
good-looking dude,
He's
right?
all right, dude. He's a
Right?
gassed up mid.
Remember they did the same thing with the Zarnoff brother when they put him
He's
on the
like
cover
a
of the world. When they
if
put
you
him on the
could
cover,
wear, oh yeah, the bombers, yeah. They kind
yeah,
of did the same thing. If he could wear makeup, he might be able to get from like a 7 to like an 8 or 9. but men can't do that.
He's got he's got that Italian look that girls like, with the dark hair and the dark eyebrows, etc. But I want to say this: uh, insurance companies deny claims. Medicare denies claims. Medicaid denies claims. They deny claims. They deny tens and tens of thousands of claims. If a Medicare or Medicaid administrator were executed on a sidewalk because they denied thousands of claims, the left would call that domestic terrorism. You see, when the government denies claims, that's okay. When an insurance company denies claims, that's bad and wrong, and justifies murder. The response I got from a person in a newsroom a couple of days ago when I mentioned that, and they said, so they got on their phone and they looked up the stats, and they said, yes, but Medicaid only denies 7% of claims, and United Healthcare denies 32%. And my response to him was this: I said, then your argument is it's just based on percentages. Like that's the same argument the Nazis used on percentages of ethnicity, Jewish ethnicity. If you had this much Jewish ethnicity in your blood, you lived. If you had this much more Jewish ethnicity in your blood, you went to the fucking gas chamber.
I've probably said this a million times, and I'll say it a million times more. Beware of those who get their spiritual meaning through politics. Beware. Keep a wide berth, because they are dangerous ideologues. They are religious.
They're dangerous ideologues, and it won't be long, God forbid, it won't be long before somebody shoots a pharmaceutical CEO on a sidewalk claiming that they killed thousands of people, or
Copycat.
huh? Right?
Copycat.
Yeah, exactly. Or a processed food CEO claiming that they killed thousands of people, or you name it, right?
Yeah, you got to shut the door down on this shit now. You can't let people think that this is okay in the slightest bit. It's
Guys, it's been fun.
people are ridiculous.
It's been fun.
Cheer! Oh, I'm out. That means we're
Still
done.
go for part 2.
We'll do
Yeah,
part 2. We'll do part
All right,
2. So let's
cheers,
cheers
everybody.
for now.
Yeah, from Reckoning Brothers headquarters, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.